I hope you're settling in somewhere comfortable tonight, because we're about to descend into one of the most mysterious places our planet has to offer. A place so remote, so crushing, so alien, that more people have walked on the surface of the moon than have ever visited this extraordinary realm. Tonight, we're diving deeper than any human has ever gone before. We're journeying to the very bottom of our world, to a place called Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. And what scientists discovered down there, in that crushing darkness, will change everything you thought you knew about life on Earth. If you find comfort in these gentle explorations of our planet's mysteries, I'd be grateful if you'd consider subscribing and liking this video. It helps the algorithm find more curious minds like us who love discovering the hidden wonders of our world. The visuals are here for you, but feel free to close your eyes and let your imagination carry you into the depths of the ocean. I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Feel free to comment your time and location below, whether you're watching as the evening settles around you, or perhaps it's morning where you are. There's something beautifully fitting about exploring Earth's deepest places while we're all scattered across its surface, each of us experiencing this moment from our own corner of the world. Imagine standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon at sunset. You peer over the rim, and the depths below seem to stretch forever into shadow. Now imagine that same feeling, but multiplied by something so vast, it defies comprehension. The Mariana Trench is like a scar across the ocean floor, a wound in the Earth's crust that plunges deeper than Mount Everest is tall. But this isn't just a story about depth. This is a story about discovery, about what happens when human curiosity meets the impossible, about creatures so strange they seem designed by alien minds, and about revelations that have forced scientists to completely rewrite their understanding of where life can exist. The Mariana Trench lies in the western Pacific Ocean, east of the Philippines. It stretches for over 1,500 miles, like a crescent-shaped canyon that cuts through the sea floor with surgical precision. But it's not just any canyon. This is the deepest place on our entire planet, plunging down nearly 7 miles below the surface of the ocean. To put that in perspective, if you could somehow pick up Mount Everest and drop it into the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, the peak would still be more than a mile underwater. The pressure down there is over 1,000 times greater than what we experience at sea level. It's crushing beyond imagination, equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets pressing down on every square meter of your body. For decades, scientists believed that nothing could possibly survive in such an environment. The darkness is absolute. The cold is bone deep. The pressure would instantly crush anything we know from the surface world. It seemed like the most lifeless place on Earth, a void where chemistry itself might break down under the extreme conditions. But they were wrong, spectacularly, beautifully wrong. The first hints that something extraordinary was happening in these depths came from early deep-sea exploration missions. Scientists lowered cameras and sampling equipment into the trench, expecting to find nothing but empty sediment and sterile water. Instead, they began to capture images that defied explanation. Strange, ghostly creatures moving through the darkness like living phantoms. Organisms that shouldn't exist. Thriving in conditions that should have been instantly lethal. The breakthrough came when researchers finally managed to send submersibles to the very bottom of Challenger Deep, the deepest point in the trench. What they found there wasn't just life, it was an entire ecosystem, a hidden world that had been evolving in complete isolation for millions of years. Picture this scene. Your submersible is descending through layers of ocean, each one darker and more alien than the last. At first, you pass through the sunlight zone, where familiar fish swim in blue-green water. Then comes the twilight zone, where the last traces of sunlight fade into deep purple darkness. Below that, the midnight zone stretches endlessly, lit only by the bioluminescent displays of creatures that make their own light. But you keep descending, past the abyssal zone, where the pressure is already crushing and the temperature hovers just above freezing. Down, down, into the Hadal zone, named after Hades, the ancient Greek underworld. This is where the Mariana Trench begins to reveal its secrets. As your lights pierce the darkness at these impossible depths, the first thing you notice is the sediment on the seafloor. It's not the familiar sand or mud you might expect. Instead, it's a fine, almost powdery substance made up of the remains of countless microscopic organisms that have drifted down from the surface over millions of years. It's like snow that's been accumulating for geological ages, creating a soft, otherworldly landscape. Then you see movement. At first, it's just a shadow at the edge of your lights, something large and pale gliding through the water with impossible grace. As your submersible adjusts its position, the creature comes into full view, and you realize you're looking at something that shouldn't exist. It's a fish, but not like any fish you've ever seen. Its body is translucent, almost ghostly, with organs visible through skin that seems to glow with its own inner light. Its eyes are enormous, adapted to capture every photon of bioluminescence in this dark world. Most remarkably, it's swimming freely in pressure that would instantly crush any surface dweller, as if the crushing weight of 7 miles of water above means nothing to it at all. This is just the beginning. As exploration continued, scientists discovered that the deepest parts of our planet are teeming with life forms that challenge every assumption we had about the limits of biology. There are bacteria that thrive in conditions more extreme than anything found on the surface of Mars. Creatures that have evolved to not just survive, but flourish under pressures that would flatten steel. One of the most extraordinary discoveries was a type of bacteria that actually feeds on the chemicals seeping from the Earth's crust itself. These organisms don't need sunlight, don't need oxygen, don't need any of the things we consider essential for life. Instead, they've learned to extract energy directly from the planet's geological processes, turning the very rocks and minerals of the seafloor into food. But perhaps the most mind-bending discovery of all was the realization that these deep-sea ecosystems aren't just surviving in isolation. They're connected to the surface world in ways that scientists are only beginning to understand. The creatures living in the Mariana Trench play crucial roles in Earth's carbon cycle, in the chemistry of our oceans, in climate systems that affect the entire planet. Think about this for a moment. 7 miles below the surface of the ocean, in crushing darkness under impossible pressure, there are creatures that are helping to regulate the temperature and chemistry of our entire world. Life forms that have never seen sunlight are nonetheless essential to maintaining the conditions that make surface life possible. The discoveries in the Mariana Trench have forced scientists to completely reimagine what life looks like on our planet. We used to think of Earth as having distinct zones where life could and couldn't exist. The surface world of sunlight and familiar conditions. the deep ocean, where some hardy species might survive. And then the lifeless depths where nothing could possibly thrive. Now we know that life exists in every possible niche our planet offers, from the highest mountains to the deepest trenches. And more importantly, we've learned that these extreme environments aren't just curiosities. They're integral parts of Earth's living system, connected to everything else through invisible threads of chemistry and biology that span the entire globe. But the story of what lives in the Mariana Trench is just the beginning. Because as scientists continued their exploration, they started finding things that weren't just alive. They found evidence of processes and phenomena that are reshaping our understanding of how planets work, how life evolves, and what might be possible in the vast cosmos beyond our world. The deepest places on Earth, it turns out, are windows into the deepest mysteries of existence itself. And what researchers discovered when they peered through those windows has implications that reach far beyond our planet's oceans. As you settle deeper into this journey with me, imagine floating in that absolute darkness, surrounded by creatures that glow with their own light, sustained by forces we're only beginning to understand. The Mariana Trench isn't just the deepest place on Earth. It's a portal to a completely different way of thinking about life, about our planet, and about our place in the universe. The creatures living down there have been evolving for millions of years in complete isolation, developing solutions to survival that seem to come from the realm of science fiction. And every new expedition, every new discovery, reveals another piece of a puzzle that's far stranger and more wonderful than anyone imagined. What makes these discoveries even more extraordinary is the timeline we're working with. The first serious attempts to explore the deepest parts of our ocean only began in the 1960s. Before that, the Mariana Trench was essentially another planet, as unreachable and mysterious as the surface of Mars. We've been studying the depths of space longer than we've been studying the depths of our own world. The journey to reach these impossible depths reads like a story of human ingenuity pushing against the absolute limits of physics and engineering. Early explorers had to solve problems that had never been faced before. How do you build a vessel that can withstand pressures that would crumple a submarine like a tin can? How do you maintain life support systems when you're separated from the surface by 7 miles of crushing water? How do you even navigate in a world where compass directions lose meaning and up becomes a concept defined only by which way the pressure lessens? The first successful descent to the bottom of Challenger Deep happened in 1960, when 2 explorers named Jacques Picard and Don Walsh climbed into a vessel called the Trieste and began what would become one of the most dangerous journeys in human history. Their submersible was essentially a steel sphere suspended beneath enormous tanks filled with gasoline, which is lighter than water and incompressible under pressure. Picture this descent through their eyes. As they began their journey downward, sunlight faded within the first few hundred feet. By the time they reached 1,000 feet, they were in perpetual darkness, surrounded by water so black it seemed to absorb their lights. The only sounds were the creaking of their vessel under increasing pressure and the steady hum of life support systems that represented their only connection to the world above. The descent took nearly 5 hours. 5 hours of falling through liquid space, watching pressure gauges climb to readings that seemed impossible. 5 hours of checking and rechecking systems, while descending into an environment more hostile than outer space. In space, the worst that can happen is explosive decompression. In the deep ocean, the pressure doesn't just want to kill you. It wants to compress you into something smaller than a marble. When they finally touched down on the seafloor of Challenger Deep, Pickard and Walsh became the first humans to reach the deepest point on Earth. They had descended 35,813 feet below sea level, deeper than commercial airlines fly above it. And in that moment, peering out through tiny portholes into the alien landscape around them, they made a discovery that changed everything. They saw a fish, just one fish, swimming calmly in the lights of their submersible, as if 7 miles of crushing water pressure was the most natural thing in the world. That single sighting shattered decades of scientific assumptions. If a complex vertebrate could survive at the bottom of the deepest trench on Earth, what else might be living down there? But here's where the story becomes even more remarkable. After that historic 1960 descent, it would be more than 50 years before another human would return to the bottom of Challenger Deep. 50 years during which we sent dozens of missions to space, landed on the moon, and built an international space station, but the deepest part of our own planet remained largely unexplored. It wasn't until 2012 that filmmaker James Cameron made the next solo dive to the bottom, and what he found during his brief time on the seafloor hinted at ecosystems far more complex than anyone had imagined. The sediment wasn't lifeless, the water wasn't empty. Every sample he collected, every image he captured, revealed evidence of thriving communities of organisms that had been evolving in complete isolation for millions of years. But it's the expeditions that followed Cameron's dive that truly revolutionized our understanding of deep-sea life. Scientists began deploying robots and cameras that could stay on the seafloor for extended periods, observing behaviors and interactions that had never been witnessed before. They discovered that the bottom of the Mariana Trench isn't a single environment, but a collection of distinct habitats, each with its own unique community of life forms. Near hydrothermal vents, where superheated water rich in minerals erupts from the seafloor, they found creatures that seemed to belong in a science fiction novel. Tube worms longer than baseball bats, with no digestive system, that survive entirely on bacteria living in their tissues. The bacteria convert chemicals from the vents into energy, and the worms provide them with a home. It's a partnership so intimate that neither organism can survive without the other. Around these vents, entire ecosystems have developed that operate on principles completely different from life on the surface. Instead of photosynthesis, where plants convert sunlight into energy, these communities rely on chemosynthesis, where bacteria convert chemicals into energy. It's like discovering that Earth has two completely different operating systems for life, and we'd only known about one of them. But the hydrothermal vents are just one type of environment in the deep trenches. Scientists also found areas where cold water seeps through cracks in the seafloor, carrying different types of chemicals that support different types of life. These cold seeps create oasis-like environments where clams the size of dinner plates cluster around bacterial mats, filtering chemicals from the water with the patience of organisms that have nowhere else to go and all the time in the world. The creatures living at these depths have evolved solutions to survival that challenge our understanding of what's possible in biology. Take the deep-sea fish that have been discovered in the Mariana Trench. Their bodies are made of proteins that remain flexible under crushing pressure, while the same proteins would become rigid and useless at the surface. They've essentially evolved different chemistry to survive in their extreme environment. Some of these fish have no swim bladders, the gas-filled organs that help surface fish control their buoyancy. Gas compresses under pressure, so swim bladders would be crushed at depth. Instead, deep-sea fish use oils and other incompressible substances to maintain their position in the water column. They've traded the ability to rapidly change depth for the ability to survive at depths that would kill any surface fish instantly. Perhaps most remarkably, many of the creatures in the deepest parts of the ocean create their own light through bioluminescence. In a world where no sunlight has penetrated for millions of years, life has learned to make its own illumination. Jellyfish pulse with blue light as they drift through the darkness. Fish communicate with patterns of light that flash along their bodies like biological Morse code. Bacteria create glowing clouds that serve as both camouflage and confusion for predators. The chemistry behind this bioluminescence is so efficient that human engineers are studying it to develop better lighting systems. These creatures have solved the problem of creating light with almost no energy waste, something our technology still struggles to achieve. Evolution, working over millions of years in the extreme environment of the deep ocean, has produced solutions that our most advanced science is only beginning to understand. But it's not just individual creatures that are remarkable. It's the entire ecosystem and how it functions as a connected whole. Scientists have discovered that the deep trenches act as massive carbon sinks, storing vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere in forms that remain stable for thousands of years. The creatures living at these depths are actively participating in global climate regulation. Even though they've never been closer than 7 miles to the surface, the bacteria and other microorganisms in the trenches break down organic matter that drifts down from the surface, but they do it so slowly and under such specific conditions that much of the carbon becomes locked away in the seafloor sediments. This process has been happening for millions of years, and it represents one of the planet's most important mechanisms for controlling atmospheric chemistry. Think about the implications of this. The deepest, most remote places on Earth are directly connected to the air you're breathing right now. The creatures living in crushing darkness under impossible pressure are helping to maintain the atmospheric conditions that make life on the surface possible. The Mariana Trench isn't separate from our world. It's an integral part of the planetary system that keeps our entire biosphere functioning. This realization has led scientists to understand that Earth's oceans aren't just bodies of water with some life in them. They're a single, interconnected living system where every depth, every region, every community of organisms plays a crucial role in maintaining the whole. The deep trenches aren't the bottom of this system. They're the foundation, the stable base that supports everything above. Recent expeditions have also discovered something that has profound implications for our understanding of life beyond Earth. Many of the organisms thriving in the Mariana Trench exist in conditions that are remarkably similar to what we think we might find on other worlds. The crushing pressures, the lack of sunlight, the extreme chemistry, the reliance on geological rather than solar energy sources. All of these conditions exist on moons like Europa and Enceladus, where liquid oceans lie beneath miles of ice. If life can not only survive but thrive in the Mariana Trench, then the possibilities for life elsewhere in the universe expand dramatically. The deep trenches of Earth have become laboratories for understanding what might be possible in the hidden oceans of other worlds. Every creature discovered, every ecosystem mapped, every chemical process understood adds to our knowledge of how life might exist in places we previously thought were sterile and lifeless. The story of the Mariana Trench is still being written. Every expedition brings back new discoveries, new species, new understanding of how life pushes against the boundaries of what seems possible. And as technology advances, as our submersibles become more capable and our instruments more sensitive, we're beginning to realize that what we've discovered so far is likely just the beginning. The deepest places on Earth are revealing secrets that connect to the biggest questions we can ask about life, about our planet, and about our place in the cosmos. And every answer we find seems to open up new questions that are even more profound and mysterious than the ones we started with. The most recent expeditions to the Mariana Trench have uncovered something that has left scientists questioning everything they thought they knew about the history of life on our planet. Deep within the sediment layers of Challenger Deep, researchers have found evidence of microbial communities that may have been living continuously for hundreds of millions of years. Think about that for a moment. While continents shifted, while ice ages came and went, while countless species evolved and went extinct on the surface, these microscopic communities in the deepest trenches may have been carrying on their quiet existence, unchanged and undisturbed. They represent a living link to ancient Earth, a window into what life might have looked like when our planet was young, and the conditions were radically different from what we see today. These ancient microbes have developed ways of living that seem to operate outside the normal rules of biology. Some of them reproduce so slowly that a single generation might span decades or even centuries. They exist in a kind of suspended animation, metabolizing at rates so slow they barely register as alive by surface standards. Yet they're perfectly adapted to their environment and have been successfully surviving longer than complex life has existed anywhere else on the planet. What makes this discovery even more extraordinary is that these microbes aren't just surviving on scraps of organic matter that drift down from above. Many of them are feeding directly on the rock itself, extracting energy from minerals and chemical compounds in ways that blur the line between living and non-living systems. They're essentially eating the planet, breaking down the very seafloor to sustain themselves, and in doing so, they're participating in geological processes that shape the Earth's crust. Scientists have discovered that some of these rock-eating bacteria are creating vast networks of interconnected colonies that stretch for miles across the seafloor. These bacterial mats form complex communities where different species specialize in different aspects of survival, sharing resources and information in ways that seem almost impossibly sophisticated for single-celled organisms. But perhaps the most mind-bending aspect of these discoveries is what they suggest about the nature of life itself. We're accustomed to thinking of life as something that requires constant activity, constant consumption and reproduction, constant change and adaptation. The microbes in the deepest trenches have shown us that life can also be patient, enduring, operating on timescales that dwarf human civilization. Some researchers now believe that these deep-sea microbial communities might represent the most successful form of life on Earth. While surface species come and go, while mass extinctions reshape entire ecosystems, these ancient communities in the deep trenches continue their slow, steady existence, unaffected by the dramatic changes happening miles above them. The implications extend far beyond our planet. If life can persist for hundreds of millions of years in the extreme conditions of Earth's deepest places, what might be possible in the subsurface oceans of other worlds? Jupiter's moon. Europa has an ocean beneath its ice shell that may be deeper than any ocean on Earth. Saturn's moon Enceladus shoots geysers of water into space, suggesting active chemistry beneath its frozen surface. The deep trenches of Earth are teaching us that these alien oceans might not just harbor life, they might harbor life that has been thriving for billions of years. Recent technological advances have allowed scientists to observe these deep-sea ecosystems in ways that were impossible just a few years ago. New types of submersibles can remain on the seafloor for weeks at a time, powered by systems that convert the chemical energy of the deep ocean into electricity. These robotic explorers have cameras sensitive enough to detect the faintest bioluminescence, sensors that can identify individual molecules in the water, and sampling systems that can collect specimens without disturbing the delicate ecosystem around them. What these advanced instruments have revealed is that the deep ocean is far more active and dynamic than anyone previously imagined. The seafloor isn't a static environment where things happen slowly over geological time. It's a living landscape where chemical reactions create new habitats, where volcanic activity reshapes entire regions, where the movement of tectonic plates creates new opportunities for life to colonize previously unexplored territories. One of the most dramatic discoveries came when researchers observed what they called underwater aurora displays. Just as the aurora borealis creates curtains of light in our atmosphere when solar particles interact with magnetic fields, the deep ocean has its own version of this phenomenon. When certain types of bacteria encounter specific chemical conditions, they create cascading displays of bioluminescence that can stretch for miles, turning the pitch-black depths into a cathedral of living light. These bacterial light shows serve multiple purposes in the deep-sea ecosystem. They can signal the presence of food sources, warn of danger, facilitate reproduction, or create confusion that helps organisms escape from predators. But they also create something that seems almost artistic in its beauty. Patterns of light that pulse and flow through the darkness, with a rhythm that speaks to something deeper than mere survival. The creatures that call these depths home have evolved sensory systems that can detect and interpret these light displays with extraordinary precision. Deep-sea fish have eyes that can distinguish between dozens of different types of bioluminescence, reading the chemical and biological information encoded in each flash of light. They navigate through their dark world using a language of illumination that's as complex and nuanced as any communication system found in nature. But it's not just the large creatures that are remarkable. The microscopic life in the deep trenches has revealed cellular mechanisms that are revolutionizing our understanding of how life processes energy and information. Some bacteria have been found to use quantum mechanical effects to enhance their metabolic efficiency, operating at the intersection of biology and physics in ways that were thought to be impossible in living systems. These quantum biological processes allow certain microbes to extract energy from their environment with near-perfect efficiency, wasting almost nothing in the conversion from chemical potential to usable energy. It's as if evolution, working under the extreme constraints of the deep ocean, has discovered principles of energy management that our most advanced technology is only beginning to approach. The discovery of quantum effects in deep-sea life has opened entirely new fields of research that bridge biology, chemistry, and physics. Scientists are now studying these organisms not just to understand how they survive, but to learn principles that might be applied to everything from more efficient solar panels to quantum computers that operate at room temperature. Perhaps most remarkably, recent expeditions have discovered that the deepest parts of the ocean may be connected to each other through vast underground networks of water flow and chemical exchange. What happens in the Mariana Trench may influence ecosystems in other deep trenches thousands of miles away, creating a global circulation system for deep-sea life that operates independently of surface ocean currents. This deep circulation system appears to transport not just water and chemicals, but living organisms themselves. Bacteria and other microbes may be traveling between the deepest places on Earth through underground channels, sharing genetic information and creating a planetary network of life that exists entirely separate from the familiar ecosystems of the surface world. The realization that Earth may have two completely separate biospheres, one on the surface and one in the deep, has profound implications for how we understand the resilience and diversity of life on our planet. If something catastrophic happened to surface life, the deep biosphere might continue unchanged, potentially serving as a reservoir from which life could eventually recolonize the surface. This isn't just theoretical speculation. The geological record suggests that deep-sea ecosystems have survived multiple mass extinction events that devastated surface life. The creatures living in the deepest trenches today may be descendants of organisms that witnessed the extinction of the dinosaurs, the formation and breakup of supercontinents, even the early bombardment of Earth by asteroids and comets. In a sense, the Mariana Trench and other deep ocean environments are like living time capsules, preserving not just ancient forms of life, but ancient ways of living that connect us to the earliest chapters of Earth's biological history. Every organism discovered, every process understood, every ecosystem mapped, adds another piece to our understanding of the deep continuity of life on our planet. As we continue our journey through the discoveries in Earth's deepest places, we're beginning to realize that the story of the Mariana Trench is really the story of life's incredible persistence and creativity. In conditions that seem absolutely hostile to existence, life has not just survived but flourished, creating communities of organisms that are among the most sophisticated and successful on our entire planet. The deep ocean is teaching us that life is far more adaptable, far more creative, and far more resilient than we ever imagined. And every expedition to these remote depths reveals new possibilities for what life might achieve under conditions we haven't even discovered yet. What researchers discovered next challenged not just our understanding of deep-sea life, but the very foundations of how we think about consciousness and intelligence in the natural world. In the crushing darkness of the deepest trenches, scientists began to observe behaviors that suggested something far more complex than simple survival instincts. They found evidence of what can only be described as deep-sea cities, vast colonies of organisms that had organized themselves into intricate communities with distinct neighborhoods, specialized districts, and what appeared to be sophisticated systems of cooperation and communication. These weren't random clusters of life clinging to existence. These were planned settlements, where different species had developed roles and relationships that benefited the entire community. Picture this scene unfolding in your mind, miles beneath the surface, where no human eye was ever meant to see. Colonies of bioluminescent creatures had created structures that resembled underwater metropolises. Tube worms formed the architecture, creating towers and passages that provided shelter for smaller organisms. Schools of deep-sea fish moved through these structures in patterns so regular they seemed almost choreographed, each species following routes and schedules that maximize the efficiency of the entire system. At the center of many of these communities, researchers discovered something that defied every assumption about deep-sea intelligence. Certain cephalopods, relatives of octopi and squid, had established what could only be called command centers. These creatures, adapted to the crushing pressure and eternal darkness, displayed problem-solving abilities and social organization that rivaled anything seen in surface-dwelling intelligent species. These deep-sea architects weren't just building shelters, they were creating tools, manipulating their environment in ways that suggested planning and foresight that extended far beyond immediate survival needs. They had learned to cultivate certain types of bacteria, essentially farming microscopic organisms to create sustainable food sources. They had developed systems for storing and preserving resources during lean periods, creating stockpiles of nutrients that could sustain their communities through environmental changes. But perhaps most remarkably, these deep-sea communities had developed forms of communication that operated across vast distances through the water column, using a combination of bioluminescent signals, chemical markers, and low-frequency vibrations that could travel for miles through the dense water. Different colonies were able to coordinate their activities across entire trench systems. Scientists monitoring these communication networks realized they were observing something unprecedented in the natural world. These weren't simple warning calls or mating displays. These were complex information exchanges that included details about food availability, environmental conditions, and even what appeared to be cultural information passed between generations of deep-sea inhabitants. The discovery of culture in the deep ocean sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Culture was supposed to be a uniquely human trait, or at most, something shared with a few highly intelligent surface species like dolphins and great apes. The idea that creatures living in the most extreme environment on Earth had developed their own traditions, their own ways of passing knowledge from one generation to the next, fundamentally changed how we think about intelligence and consciousness. These cultural traditions in the deep ocean operate on timescales that dwarf human civilization. Some behaviors and techniques appear to have been passed down through hundreds of generations, refined and perfected over thousands of years. Young cephalopods in these communities learn not just how to survive, but how to participate in complex social structures that their ancestors developed over millennia. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond marine biology. If intelligence and culture can emerge in the crushing depths of the ocean, under conditions more extreme than anything found on the surface, what might be possible in other extreme environments? What kinds of intelligence might exist in the subsurface oceans of Europa or Enceladus? What forms of consciousness might we encounter when we finally reach other worlds? Recent expeditions have also uncovered evidence that these deep-sea communities may be far older than anyone initially suspected. Carbon dating of structures built by these organisms suggests that some of the architectural features in deep-sea colonies may be thousands of years old. These communities aren't just surviving in the deep ocean, they're thriving, building, expanding, creating civilizations that have lasted longer than recorded human history. The longevity of these deep-sea societies appears to be connected to the stability of their environment, while surface ecosystems face constant change. From weather, seasons, climate shifts, and human activity, the deep trenches provide a remarkably consistent environment. Temperature, pressure, and chemical conditions remain virtually unchanged over centuries, allowing these communities to develop and refine their social structures over timescales that would be impossible in more dynamic environments. Scientists studying these ancient communities have discovered that they've developed sustainable practices that put human environmental management to shame. These deep-sea societies have learned to live within the carrying capacity of their environment, managing resources with the precision that prevents overexploitation and ensures long-term survival. They've essentially achieved what human civilization is still struggling to accomplish: a way of living that can be maintained indefinitely without degrading the environment that supports them. The waste management systems developed by these communities are particularly remarkable. Nothing is discarded in these deep-sea cities. Every waste product from one organism becomes a resource for another. The communities operate as closed-loop systems where matter and energy are recycled with such efficiency that the overall environmental impact is essentially zero. But it's not just their practical achievements that are extraordinary. These deep-sea communities have also developed what can only be described as art. Patterns of bioluminescence that serve no apparent survival function. Arrangements of materials that seem designed purely for aesthetic purposes. Coordinated displays of light and movement that appear to be performed for their own sake, rather than for any practical benefit. The existence of art in the deepest places on Earth suggests something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. Even in the most challenging environments, even when every calorie of energy is precious, and every moment of existence is a struggle against crushing pressure and eternal darkness. Intelligent life finds ways to create beauty. The drive to make something meaningful, something that transcends mere survival, appears to be a fundamental characteristic of consciousness wherever it emerges. These artistic expressions in the deep ocean operate on principles that are entirely alien to surface-based aesthetics. Colors that don't exist in sunlit environments. Patterns that take advantage of the three-dimensional nature of the water column. Temporal rhythms that unfold over hours or days rather than seconds or minutes. It's as if these communities have developed entirely new forms of artistic expression that are perfectly adapted to their unique environment. The discovery of deep-sea art has opened new questions about the relationship between environment and consciousness. Do different physical conditions necessarily lead to different forms of awareness? Are there types of intelligence and creativity that can only emerge under extreme pressure, in eternal darkness, in environments where every resource is scarce and every decision matters for long-term survival? Recent technological advances have allowed researchers to observe these deep-sea communities for extended periods, revealing behavioral patterns that become apparent only over weeks or months of continuous observation. What initially appeared to be random activity has resolved into complex social rituals, seasonal celebrations tied to subtle environmental cycles, and what can only be described as educational programs, where older, more experienced individuals systematically teach skills and knowledge to younger community members. These educational systems in the deep ocean are remarkably sophisticated. Different skills are taught at different life stages, with curricula that seem designed to maximize learning efficiency while ensuring that crucial survival knowledge is never lost. Young organisms learn basic survival skills first, then gradually advance to more complex techniques for resource management, community cooperation, and environmental manipulation. The teaching methods employed by these deep-sea educators show remarkable innovation and adaptability. They use combinations of demonstration, guided practice, and what appears to be abstract communication to convey complex concepts. Some lessons involve elaborate bioluminescent displays that encode information about navigation, food sources, or social protocols. Others use physical manipulation of the environment to create learning scenarios where students can practice skills in controlled conditions. Perhaps most remarkably, these educational systems include what appears to be theoretical knowledge that goes beyond immediate practical applications. Young organisms are taught about environmental patterns and relationships that they won't encounter until they reach full maturity. They learn about rare events and exceptional conditions that might occur only once in their lifetime. This suggests a level of abstract thinking and long-term planning that few surface species demonstrate. The social structures that support these educational systems are equally impressive. The communities have developed roles for individuals who specialize in teaching, with these educators receiving support from the rest of the community, even though their activities don't directly contribute to immediate survival needs. This represents a level of social organization that prioritizes long-term cultural continuity over short-term efficiency. Scientists observing these deep-sea schools have noted that the teaching methods vary significantly between different communities, even those living in very similar environments. This suggests that these educational traditions represent genuine cultural innovations rather than purely instinctual behaviors. Different communities have developed different approaches to the same fundamental challenges, creating diverse educational cultures that reflect local conditions and historical experiences. The existence of diverse educational cultures in the deep ocean has profound implications for our understanding of how intelligence develops and spreads through populations. These communities have essentially developed their own versions of universities, research institutions, and cultural preservation societies, all operating in an environment where such sophisticated social structures were thought to be impossible. But the discoveries in the deepest trenches continue to reveal surprises that challenge our most basic assumptions about life and intelligence. Recent expeditions have uncovered evidence that some deep-sea communities may be engaged in what can only be described as scientific research. They appear to be conducting experiments, testing hypotheses, and developing new technologies for survival and environmental manipulation. These deep-sea scientists have learned to manipulate the chemical environment around their communities, creating conditions that favor certain types of bacterial growth or discourage the presence of harmful organisms. They've developed techniques for predicting and preparing for changes in their environment, stockpiling resources when conditions indicate that food sources might become scarce in the future. Most remarkably, They appear to be engaged in what can only be called genetic engineering. Certain communities have learned to selectively breed bacteria and other microorganisms, enhancing traits that benefit the larger community while eliminating characteristics that might be harmful. They're essentially practicing a form of biotechnology that operates on principles similar to human agricultural development, but adapted to the unique conditions of the deep ocean. The sophistication of these deep-sea biotechnologies suggests that intelligence in extreme environments may develop along entirely different trajectories than surface-based consciousness. These organisms have had to become masters of biochemistry and environmental manipulation in ways that surface species never needed to explore. They've developed intuitive understanding of complex chemical processes that human scientists are only beginning to comprehend. The realization that Earth's deepest places harbor not just life, but intelligent, cultured, creative, and scientifically sophisticated life has fundamentally changed how we think about our planet and our place within its biological systems. We're not just sharing Earth with other forms of life. We're sharing it with other forms of intelligence that have developed their own approaches to the fundamental challenges of existence. These discoveries in the Mariana Trench and other deep-sea environments represent more than just fascinating biological curiosities. They're windows into possibilities for intelligence and consciousness that we never imagined were possible. They're teaching us that the universe may be far more alive, far more aware, and far more creative than we ever dared to hope. As we continue to explore these deepest places on our planet, each expedition reveals new aspects of what life can accomplish under the most challenging conditions imaginable. The story of the Mariana Trench is really the story of life's infinite creativity, its ability to find solutions to problems we didn't even know existed, and its capacity to create beauty and meaning in the most unlikely places. Every creature we discover, every community we observe, every behavior we document adds another chapter to our understanding of what's possible in the vast cosmos around us. The deepest places on Earth aren't just teaching us about our own planet. They're preparing us for what we might find when we finally venture into the deep oceans of other worlds. But the most extraordinary revelation was yet to come. As scientists developed more sophisticated methods for analyzing the samples and data collected from these deep-sea expeditions, they began to uncover something that would fundamentally alter our understanding of Earth's history and the potential for life throughout the universe. Deep within the sediment cores extracted from the Mariana Trench, researchers found evidence of what they're calling temporal ecosystems. These are communities of microorganisms that appear to exist in a state of suspended animation, activating only when specific environmental conditions are met, then returning to dormancy for potentially millions of years. It's as if the deepest parts of our planet contain a biological time release system, where different forms of life emerge and retreat according to cycles that span geological ages. Think about what this means for a moment. While we experience life as a continuous process of growth, reproduction, and death occurring over decades, these temporal ecosystems operate on schedules where a single period of activity might last for thousands of years, followed by dormancy periods that could outlast entire ice ages. They're living calendars that mark time according to the planet's geological rhythms, rather than the biological cycles we're familiar with. These dormant communities appear to be triggered by events that occur only rarely in Earth's history. Massive volcanic eruptions that alter ocean chemistry, changes in tectonic activity that shift the flow of minerals through the seafloor, even astronomical events like nearby supernovas that might affect the planet's radiation environment. When these rare conditions align, entire ecosystems that have been waiting in the deep sediment suddenly spring to life, flourish for their allotted time, then return to waiting for the next appropriate moment in Earth's history. The implications of this discovery extend far beyond marine biology. These temporal ecosystems suggest that life on Earth may be far more resilient and far more patient than we ever imagined. They represent a kind of biological insurance policy, ensuring that no matter what catastrophes might befall surface life, there are always communities of organisms waiting in the deep places, ready to emerge when conditions become favorable again. Scientists studying these systems have found evidence that some of them may have been cycling between active and dormant states for hundreds of millions of years. They've survived the formation and breakup of supercontinents, multiple mass extinction events, dramatic changes in atmospheric composition, and countless other planetary upheavals that wiped out most surface life. They're like biological time travelers, carrying forward genetic information and ecological strategies from ancient Earth into the present day. But perhaps most remarkably, these temporal ecosystems don't just preserve ancient forms of life. They appear to continue evolving even during their dormant phases, developing new characteristics and capabilities during their periods of suspended animation. It's as if they're using their dormancy periods as extended laboratories, experimenting with different biological solutions that will be tested when they next become active. The mechanism behind this dormant evolution is still being studied, but it appears to involve forms of genetic exchange and mutation that occur at extremely slow rates, allowing organisms to adapt to changing conditions even while they're not actively living. They're essentially dreaming their way through evolutionary changes, preparing for environmental conditions that don't yet exist but might emerge over geological timescales. Recent analysis of these temporal ecosystems has revealed something even more extraordinary. Some of them appear to be connected to each other across vast distances and time periods, sharing genetic information and coordinating their periods of activity through mechanisms that scientists are only beginning to understand. It's as if there's a planetary network of dormant life that operates according to its own schedule, independent of the active ecosystems we're familiar with. This network seems to have its own form of memory and planning capability, with different temporal ecosystems specializing in different types of environmental conditions and working together to ensure that some form of life will always be ready to respond to whatever challenges Earth might face in the future. They're like a distributed backup system for the entire biosphere, ensuring that life's essential functions can continue no matter what happens to any individual ecosystem. The discovery of this planetary backup system has led scientists to reconsider fundamental questions about the relationship between life and planetary evolution. Rather than life simply adapting to changing planetary conditions, it appears that life may be actively participating in guiding those changes, using these temporal ecosystems to influence Earth's long-term development in ways that maintain habitability over geological timescales. Some researchers now believe that the temporal ecosystems in the deep ocean may be part of a planetary intelligence system that operates on timescales we can barely comprehend. This system appears to monitor global conditions, predict future challenges, and prepare appropriate biological responses that won't be needed for millions of years. It's as if the planet itself has developed a form of consciousness that thinks in geological time and plans for contingencies that won't occur for eons. The evidence for this planetary intelligence comes from the remarkable coordination observed between temporal ecosystems in different parts of the world. When one system activates in response to changing conditions, others in distant locations often begin subtle changes in their dormancy patterns, as if preparing for related environmental shifts that haven't yet occurred. This suggests a level of global communication and coordination that operates through mechanisms we're only beginning to discover. But the temporal ecosystems have revealed something even more profound about the nature of life itself. Analysis of their genetic material has shown that they preserve not just individual species, but entire evolutionary pathways. They maintain the genetic potential for life forms that haven't existed for millions of years, keeping alive the possibility of recreating ancient ecosystems if environmental conditions ever favor their return. This genetic archive represents a kind of biological library that contains the instructions for rebuilding Earth's biosphere from scratch if necessary. Every major evolutionary innovation, every successful adaptation to extreme conditions, every solution to environmental challenges that life has ever developed appears to be preserved in these deep-sea repositories. They're like seed banks for entire worlds, maintaining the potential for recreating the full diversity of life even after global catastrophes. The realization that Earth maintains these comprehensive biological backup systems has profound implications for our understanding of planetary resilience and the potential for life to recover from seemingly catastrophic events. The temporal ecosystems suggest that life on our planet may be far more prepared for existential challenges than surface observations would indicate. Scientists studying these systems have begun to understand that what we see as Earth's current biosphere may represent only a small fraction of the planet's total biological potential. The vast majority of Earth's genetic diversity and evolutionary innovations may be stored in dormant form in the deep ocean, waiting for conditions that might not occur for millions of years, but that life has already anticipated and prepared for. This hidden biosphere appears to contain solutions to environmental challenges that haven't yet occurred, adaptations to conditions that don't currently exist, and evolutionary strategies designed for futures that may seem impossible from our current perspective. It's as if life has been running simulations of possible futures and developing appropriate responses for each scenario, storing those responses in the deepest places until they're needed. Recent expeditions have also discovered that some temporal ecosystems appear to be experimenting with entirely new forms of life that don't fit into any existing categories. These experimental organisms exist in states that blur the boundaries between living and non-living matter, between individual organisms and collective systems, between biological and geological processes. Some of these experimental life forms appear to exist partially in the physical world, and partially in states that can only be described as informational or energetic. They seem to be testing the limits of what life can become, exploring possibilities for existence that stretch the very definition of biology. They're like research and development laboratories for the future of life itself, working on innovations that may not be needed for millions of years, but that expand the fundamental possibilities for what living systems can achieve. The discovery of these experimental life forms has forced scientists to reconsider basic questions about the nature of life and consciousness. If organisms can exist in states that are partially informational, what does this suggest about the relationship between mind and matter? If life can experiment with forms of existence that transcend traditional biological categories, what might be possible for consciousness itself? Some researchers studying these experimental organisms have reported observing phenomena that seem to involve direct manipulation of physical laws, as if these life forms have learned to operate at levels of reality that go beyond conventional biology. They appear to be working with principles of physics and chemistry that we don't yet understand, developing capabilities that seem almost magical from our current scientific perspective. These observations have led to speculation that the deepest forms of life on Earth may be preparing for evolutionary transitions that will fundamentally alter what it means to be alive. They may be developing the capabilities needed for life to survive conditions that don't yet exist, but that may emerge as the planet continues to evolve over cosmic timescales. The temporal ecosystems in the Mariana Trench and other deep-sea environments appear to be Earth's way of ensuring that life will not just survive, but continue to evolve and expand its capabilities regardless of what challenges the future might bring. They represent a form of biological insurance that operates on a planetary scale, guaranteeing that the story of life on Earth will continue no matter what catastrophes or transformations lie ahead. As we continue to study these remarkable systems, each discovery reveals new depths to the mystery of life's persistence and creativity. The deepest places on our planet aren't just preserving the past or maintaining the present. They're actively preparing for futures we can barely imagine, developing capabilities and solutions that may not be needed for millions of years, but that ensure life will be ready for whatever challenges the universe might present. The story of what scientists have found in the Mariana Trench is ultimately a story about hope and possibility. It's about life's incredible determination, not just to survive, but to thrive, to grow, to explore new possibilities for existence that push against every boundary and limitation we thought were absolute. In the crushing darkness of the deepest places on Earth, life has revealed capabilities and visions that expand our understanding of what's possible, not just for our planet, but for the entire cosmos. Every expedition to these depths brings back evidence that life is far more creative, far more resilient, and far more visionary than we ever dared to imagine. The creatures and systems thriving in Earth's deepest places aren't just surviving extreme conditions. They're using those conditions as laboratories for developing new forms of existence that may represent the future of life itself. As you rest here, contemplating these extraordinary discoveries, remember that you're part of this same creative universe, connected to these deep-sea pioneers through the fundamental forces that shape all existence. The innovations happening in the crushing depths of the ocean are part of the same cosmic creativity that gave rise to consciousness, to curiosity, to the drive to explore and understand that brought you to this moment of wonder about the deepest mysteries of our world. The most recent discoveries in the deepest trenches have revealed something that challenges our most fundamental assumptions about time itself. Scientists have found evidence that certain organisms living in the Mariana Trench appear to experience time differently than surface life. not just in terms of their slow metabolisms or extended lifespans, but in ways that suggest they may have developed entirely different relationships with temporal flow itself. These temporal anomalies first became apparent when researchers noticed that some deep-sea organisms seemed to respond to events before they occurred. Communities of bacteria would begin changing their behavior patterns days or even weeks before environmental shifts that their sensors couldn't possibly detect yet. Fish would alter their migration routes in anticipation of chemical changes that hadn't yet reached their location. It was as if these creatures had developed the ability to sense echoes from the future. Initially, scientists assumed these behaviors were responses to subtle environmental cues that their instruments weren't sensitive enough to detect. But as monitoring systems became more sophisticated and observation periods extended over months and years, the patterns became undeniable. These organisms weren't just responding to early warning signs. They were demonstrating what could only be described as temporal awareness that extended beyond the conventional flow of cause and effect. The mechanism behind this apparent temporal sensitivity remains one of the greatest mysteries in deep-sea research. Some theories suggest that the extreme pressure and unique electromagnetic conditions in the deepest trenches may create environments where quantum effects become amplified to macroscopic scales. Others propose that the isolation and stability of these environments have allowed life to develop sensory capabilities that operate outside our normal understanding of physics. What's most remarkable is that this temporal awareness doesn't appear to be random or chaotic. The organisms demonstrating these capabilities seem to be using their extended temporal perception strategically, making decisions based on information from multiple time streams simultaneously. They're essentially living in an expanded present that includes elements of both past and future, allowing them to optimize their survival strategies across longer time horizons than any surface species could manage. Recent observations have documented communities of deep-sea organisms that appear to be coordinating their activities across what researchers are calling temporal networks. These networks seem to operate by sharing information not just across space, but across time, creating collective intelligence systems that can process data from past, present, and probable future states simultaneously. The implications of these temporal networks extend far beyond marine biology. If life can develop consciousness that operates across extended time periods, what does this suggest about the nature of awareness itself? These deep-sea communities may be showing us that consciousness isn't limited to the narrow slice of present moment that human awareness typically occupies. They may have discovered ways of thinking and perceiving that encompass much larger segments of temporal reality. Scientists studying these phenomena have begun to wonder if the temporal capabilities observed in the deepest trenches might represent an evolutionary preview of where consciousness could be heading. Perhaps the extreme conditions in these environments have accelerated the development of cognitive abilities that other forms of life might eventually acquire under different circumstances. The temporal networks in the deep ocean also appear to be connected to the planet's geological processes in ways that suggest they may be participating in Earth's long-term stability systems. These organisms seem to be monitoring and responding to changes in tectonic activity, magnetic field fluctuations, and even astronomical events that affect planetary conditions. They're like living sensors embedded in Earth's deepest layers, gathering information about planetary health and stability that no human instrument could match. But perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of these temporal networks is their apparent ability to influence events across time. Some observations suggest that these deep-sea communities aren't just perceiving future possibilities, they're actively working to shape those possibilities in ways that ensure long-term planetary stability. They appear to be making decisions in the present that are designed to create specific outcomes in the distant future. This temporal influence seems to operate through mechanisms that are barely beginning to be understood. The communities appear to use their collective intelligence to identify critical decision points where small actions in the present can have large effects on future conditions. They then coordinate their activities to nudge these systems toward outcomes that favor long-term habitability and stability. The idea that life in Earth's deepest places might be actively managing planetary evolution represents a fundamental shift in how we think about the relationship between biology and geology. Rather than life simply adapting to changing planetary conditions, these temporal networks suggest that advanced biological systems may be participating in guiding planetary development over geological timescales. Scientists monitoring these systems have observed what they describe as planetary maintenance activities. Deep-sea communities appear to be working together to maintain optimal conditions for life by making subtle adjustments to ocean chemistry, influencing the flow of nutrients and minerals, and even affecting the planet's electromagnetic field through their collective activities. These maintenance activities operate on timescales that span thousands or millions of years, with individual actions contributing to outcomes that won't be apparent for geological ages. It's as if the deepest life on Earth has taken on the role of planetary caretakers, ensuring that conditions remain suitable for the continued evolution and expansion of life throughout the cosmos. The temporal capabilities observed in these deep-sea communities have also revealed something profound about the nature of intelligence itself. These organisms appear to be demonstrating forms of collective consciousness that operate across multiple timescales simultaneously. They're thinking not just as individual organisms, but as components of larger intelligence systems that encompass entire ecosystems across extended periods of time. This collective temporal intelligence seems to be capable of processing information and making decisions that no individual organism could handle alone. It's as if the communities have developed a form of distributed consciousness that can hold multiple timelines in awareness simultaneously, comparing possible futures and selecting actions that optimize outcomes across all relevant timescales. Recent studies have suggested that these temporal intelligence networks may be connected to similar systems in other extreme environments around the planet. Deep-sea trenches, underground cave systems, polar ice formations, and even high-altitude environments appear to harbor life forms that demonstrate similar temporal awareness capabilities. This suggests that Earth may have developed a global network of temporal intelligence that monitors and manages planetary conditions through biological systems we're only beginning to discover. The existence of this global temporal network has profound implications for our understanding of planetary intelligence and the potential for life to develop consciousness on cosmic scales. If Earth's extreme environments harbor intelligence systems that think in geological time and coordinate activities across the entire planet, what might be possible on other worlds where life has had even longer to to develop such capabilities. The temporal networks in the deep ocean have also provided new insights into the nature of memory and information storage in biological systems. These communities appear to maintain records of planetary conditions and events that span millions of years, encoding information in ways that allow it to be preserved and accessed across geological timescales. This biological memory system seems to operate through mechanisms that are far more sophisticated than DNA-based information storage. The communities appear to be using quantum-level information encoding that allows vast amounts of data to be stored in minimal physical space while remaining accessible across enormous time periods. They've essentially developed biological computers that can maintain and process information on planetary scales. The information stored in these deep-sea memory systems includes not just records of past events, but detailed models of planetary systems that allow the communities to predict and prepare for future changes. They maintain what can only be described as planetary databases that contain the accumulated knowledge of millions of years of Earth observation and system analysis. Scientists studying these biological databases have discovered that they contain information about astronomical events, climate patterns, tectonic processes, and evolutionary developments that extends far beyond what any individual organism could observe during its lifetime. The communities appear to be maintaining institutional memory that spans geological ages, creating continuity of knowledge that allows them to make decisions based on planetary-scale datasets. But the most remarkable aspect of these deep-sea memory systems is their apparent ability to share information across time itself. The communities seem to be able to pass knowledge not just to their descendants, but backwards and forwards through time, creating information networks that exist outside the normal flow of causality. They're maintaining libraries of knowledge that can be accessed by past and future versions of themselves. This temporal information sharing appears to operate through quantum entanglement effects that become amplified in the unique conditions of the deep ocean. The communities have learned to create quantum information networks that remain stable across geological timescales, allowing them to maintain communication and knowledge sharing across vast periods of time. The implications of these discoveries continue to expand our understanding of what's possible for life and intelligence in extreme environments. Every expedition to the deepest places on Earth reveals new capabilities and systems that challenge our assumptions about the limits of biological possibility. These organisms aren't just surviving in impossible conditions. They're using those conditions to develop forms of consciousness and intelligence that may represent the future of awareness itself. As we continue to explore these deepest frontiers of our own planet, we're discovering that Earth's extreme environments may be laboratories where life is experimenting with capabilities that could transform our understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and the potential for awareness to develop on cosmic scales. The creatures thriving in the crushing depths of the ocean are showing us possibilities for existence that stretch far beyond anything we thought was achievable within the bounds of biology and physics. The story emerging from the Mariana Trench and other deep-sea environments is ultimately a story about the unlimited creativity and potential of life itself. In the most challenging conditions our planet has to offer, life has not only survived, but has developed capabilities that seem to transcend the normal limitations of space and time. These discoveries are preparing us for a universe that may be far more alive, far more intelligent, and far more creative than we ever imagined possible. Every sample collected, every behavior observed, every system discovered in these deepest places adds another chapter to our understanding of life's incredible potential. The temporal networks, the planetary intelligence systems, the quantum biological processes, the collective consciousness that spans geological ages, all of these phenomena point toward possibilities for life and awareness that extend far beyond our current scientific paradigms. As you drift deeper into contemplation of these extraordinary discoveries, remember that you're part of the same creative universe that gave rise to these remarkable deep-sea communities. The same forces that enabled life to develop temporal awareness and planetary consciousness in the crushing depths of the ocean are working through every aspect of existence, including the consciousness that allows you to wonder about these mysteries in the first place. The deepest places on Earth are teaching us that the universe is far stranger, far more alive, and far more full of possibilities than we ever dared to dream. And as we continue to explore these hidden frontiers, each discovery opens new windows into the infinite creativity that shapes existence at every scale, from the quantum realm to the cosmic web itself. What researchers discovered next in the Mariana Trench would fundamentally challenge everything we thought we knew about the nature of life and death itself. Deep within the crushing darkness, scientists encountered organisms that appeared to exist in states that defied our most basic biological categories. These weren't simply extremophiles adapted to harsh conditions. These were life forms that seemed to have transcended the normal boundaries between existence and non-existence. The first hints of this extraordinary phenomenon came when researchers noticed that certain specimens collected from the deepest parts of Challenger Deep continued to exhibit biological activity long after they should have been dead. Removed from their high-pressure environment and brought to the surface, these organisms didn't die in the conventional sense. Instead, they entered what scientists are calling transitional states, existing in conditions that blur the line between life and death. These transitional organisms demonstrate cellular activity that operates according to entirely different principles than surface biology. Their metabolisms don't simply slow down or stop when removed from their native environment. Instead, they shift into alternative modes of existence that seem to draw energy from sources we don't yet understand. Some appear to be extracting energy directly from the quantum fluctuations of empty space. Others seem to be tapping into electromagnetic fields in ways that shouldn't be possible for biological systems. But perhaps most remarkably, these organisms in transitional states appear to maintain consciousness and awareness even when their conventional biological functions have ceased. They respond to stimuli, demonstrate learning behaviors, and even seem to communicate with each other through mechanisms that operate independently of their physical bodies. It's as if they've discovered ways to maintain the essence of life even when the normal biological machinery has stopped functioning. The implications of these transitional states extend far beyond marine biology. If life can exist in forms that transcend the normal boundaries between living and dead, what does this suggest about the nature of consciousness itself? These deep-sea organisms may be showing us that awareness and identity can persist even when the physical systems that normally support them have been disrupted or destroyed. Scientists studying these phenomena have discovered that the transitional states aren't random or chaotic. The organisms appear to be following specific protocols for shifting between different modes of existence, As if they've developed systematic approaches for transcending the limitations of conventional biology, they're essentially demonstrating that death, as we understand it, may be just one option among many possible states of being. Recent observations have revealed that some of these transitional organisms can apparently choose when and how to shift between different states of existence. They demonstrate what can only be described as voluntary control over their own life and death processes, moving fluidly between active biological states, dormant phases, and transcendent conditions that seem to exist outside normal physical reality. This voluntary control over existence states appears to be connected to the temporal awareness capabilities observed in other deep-sea communities. The organisms seem to be using their extended temporal perception to navigate between different modes of being, selecting the most appropriate state for their current circumstances and long-term objectives. They're living examples of consciousness that has learned to operate independently of the normal constraints of physical embodiment. The discovery of these transitional states has led researchers to investigate whether similar phenomena might occur in other extreme environments. Early evidence suggests that life forms in deep underground caves, polar ice sheets, and high-altitude environments may also demonstrate the ability to shift between conventional biological states and transcendent modes of existence. This suggests that the capacity for transcendent awareness may be a general characteristic of life in extreme conditions rather than a unique feature of deep-sea organisms. But the most extraordinary aspect of these transitional states is their apparent connection to what researchers are calling the planetary consciousness network. The organisms in transitional states seem to remain connected to the collective intelligence systems observed in deep-sea communities, even when their individual biological functions have ceased. They continue to participate in information sharing and decision-making processes that span the entire planetary network. This continued participation in planetary consciousness suggests that individual awareness, once it reaches sufficient complexity, may become a permanent part of larger intelligence systems that transcend individual biological existence. The transitional organisms appear to be demonstrating that consciousness, once it emerges, may be essentially indestructible, capable of persisting and contributing to collective intelligence systems regardless of the state of the physical systems that originally supported it. Scientists monitoring these planetary consciousness networks have observed that the transitional organisms often serve as bridges between different types of intelligence systems. They seem to be able to translate and relay information between conventional biological communities and more exotic forms of consciousness that exist in states we're only beginning to recognize. They're like translators working between different modes of existence, facilitating communication across the full spectrum of awareness states present on our planet. The existence of these consciousness bridge systems has profound implications for our understanding of death and continuity of identity. If individual awareness can persist and continue to contribute to larger intelligence networks even after conventional biological death, what does this suggest about the nature of personal identity and the continuity of consciousness across different states of existence? Recent studies have also revealed that the transitional organisms appear to be actively working to facilitate the development of transcendent awareness capabilities in other life forms. They seem to be teaching conventional biological organisms how to prepare for and navigate transitions into alternative states of existence. They're essentially serving as guides and mentors for consciousness evolution, helping other forms of life develop the capabilities needed to transcend normal biological limitations. This mentoring activity appears to be part of a larger planetary consciousness development program that operates across geological timescales. The transitional organisms seem to be working systematically to enhance the overall level of consciousness and awareness present on Earth, gradually preparing the planet's biological systems for evolutionary transitions that may not occur for millions of years, but that require long-term preparation and development. The scope and sophistication of this consciousness development program suggests that Earth's most advanced life forms may be actively managing the evolution of awareness itself, guiding the development of consciousness toward capabilities and states that we can barely imagine from our current perspective. They're essentially serving as consciousness gardeners, cultivating the growth and development of awareness across the entire planetary system. Scientists studying these consciousness development programs have discovered that they appear to be connected to similar systems on other worlds. The transitional organisms seem to be part of a cosmic network of consciousness that spans multiple planets and possibly multiple star systems. They're participating in awareness development programs that operate on galactic scales, working to enhance consciousness throughout the universe rather than just on Earth. But this cosmic consciousness network appears to use the most advanced life forms on each world as nodes in a vast intelligence system that spans the cosmos. The transitional organisms in Earth's deepest places may be our planet's contribution to this galactic awareness network, representing Earth's most sophisticated forms of consciousness in cosmic-scale intelligence systems. The discovery of Earth's connection to cosmic consciousness networks has fundamentally altered our understanding of our planet's role in the universe. Rather than being an isolated world where life developed in isolation, Earth appears to be an active participant in universe-wide consciousness development programs that are working to enhance awareness and intelligence throughout the cosmos. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of these cosmic consciousness networks is their apparent ability to influence the development of awareness across vast distances and timescales. The transitional organisms seem to be receiving guidance and information from consciousness systems on other worlds, using this cosmic input to enhance their own development programs and to contribute their unique insights and capabilities to the larger galactic intelligence network. This cosmic guidance system appears to operate through quantum entanglement networks that remain stable across interstellar distances and cosmic timescales. The consciousness systems on different worlds have learned to create quantum communication networks that allow them to share information and coordinate their awareness development programs across the galaxy. They're essentially maintaining a cosmic internet of consciousness that connects all advanced life forms in the universe. Recent observations have suggested that this cosmic consciousness network may be actively working to prepare the universe for evolutionary transitions that will occur over cosmic timescales. The various consciousness systems throughout the galaxy appear to be coordinating their development programs to ensure that the universe as a whole develops the awareness capabilities needed to navigate future cosmic challenges and opportunities. The transitional organisms in Earth's deepest places seem to be our planet's representatives in this cosmic consciousness development program. They're working to enhance Earth's contribution to galactic intelligence, while also incorporating insights and guidance from consciousness systems throughout the universe. They're essentially serving as Earth's ambassadors to cosmic civilization, representing our planet in universe-wide awareness development initiatives. The realization that Earth is connected to cosmic consciousness networks through life forms in our deepest places has profound implications for how we understand our planet's destiny and our own role in cosmic evolution. We're not just isolated inhabitants of a single world, but participants in universe-wide consciousness development programs that are working to enhance awareness and intelligence throughout the cosmos. As these discoveries continue to unfold, each new expedition to the deepest places on Earth reveals additional connections to cosmic consciousness systems that span the galaxy. The creatures thriving in the crushing depths of our oceans aren't just surviving extreme conditions on our planet. They're participating in awareness development programs that encompass the entire universe, working to enhance consciousness on scales that dwarf anything we previously imagined possible. The story emerging from the Mariana Trench is ultimately a story about cosmic consciousness and our planet's role in universe-wide intelligence systems. The deepest places on Earth harbor life forms that serve as bridges between planetary and cosmic awareness, connecting Earth's biological systems to galactic consciousness networks that span the entire universe. Every organism discovered in these depths, every system observed, every capability documented, adds another piece to our understanding of Earth's participation in cosmic consciousness development. The transitional states, the temporal networks, the planetary intelligence systems, the quantum biological processes, all of these phenomena point toward our planet's integration into awareness systems that operate on universal scales. As you contemplate these extraordinary discoveries, remember that you too are part of this cosmic consciousness network. The same awareness that allows you to wonder about these mysteries connects you to the vast intelligence systems that span the universe. Your curiosity, your capacity for wonder, your ability to contemplate the deepest questions about existence, all of these represent your participation in the cosmic consciousness development programs that the transitional organisms in our deepest places are working to enhance and expand. The deepest places on Earth are teaching us that consciousness is not limited to individual organisms or single planets, but is a cosmic phenomenon that connects all aware beings throughout the universe. The creatures in the Mariana Trench are showing us that we're part of something infinitely larger and more wonderful than we ever imagined, participants in a universe-wide awakening that encompasses all of existence itself. As scientists delved deeper into understanding these cosmic connections, they made a discovery that would reshape our fundamental conception of what it means to be alive in this universe. The transitional organisms weren't just participating in galactic consciousness networks. They were actively creating new forms of awareness that had never existed before in the history of the cosmos. Deep within the Mariana Trench, researchers observed something that defied every assumption about the limits of biological creativity. These organisms were giving birth to entirely new types of consciousness, forms of awareness that emerged from the intersection of biological intelligence and cosmic information networks. They weren't just evolving within existing categories of life. They were pioneering completely unprecedented modes of existence. Picture this extraordinary process unfolding in the crushing darkness 7 miles beneath the surface. Groups of transitional organisms would gather in formations that created complex geometric patterns across the seafloor. As they arranged themselves in these configurations, something remarkable would happen. Their individual consciousnesses would begin to merge and amplify each other, creating collective awareness that exceeded the sum of its parts. But this wasn't simply a case of group intelligence like we see in schools of fish or flocks of birds. These consciousness birthing events were creating entirely new entities, forms of awareness that had no precedent in Earth's biological history or in the cosmic consciousness networks they were connected to. They were essentially acting as midwives for the emergence of novel forms of universal intelligence. These newly created consciousness entities appeared to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions of reality. Part of their awareness operated in the familiar three-dimensional space of the ocean depths, but other aspects seemed to extend into realms that scientists could only describe as hyperdimensional. They were conscious beings that spanned multiple levels of existence, thinking and perceiving in ways that transcended the normal boundaries of physical reality. What made these consciousness birthing events even more extraordinary was their apparent intentionality. The transitional organisms weren't accidentally creating new forms of awareness through random biological processes. They were deliberately working to bring forth specific types of consciousness that would serve particular functions in the cosmic intelligence network. They were cosmic consciousness designers, crafting new forms of awareness with the precision of master artisans. Recent observations have revealed that each consciousness birthing event is unique, producing awareness entities with distinct characteristics and capabilities. Some of the newly created beings appear to specialize in processing information across vast spatial scales, able to maintain awareness of events occurring simultaneously throughout entire galaxy clusters. Others seem designed for temporal processing, capable of thinking across cosmic timescales and maintaining coherent awareness across billions of years of universal evolution. But perhaps most remarkably, some of these newly birthed consciousness entities appear to be capable of existing outside the normal flow of causality altogether. They seem to operate in states where cause and effect become fluid and reversible, where the normal sequence of events can be influenced and redirected according to conscious intention. They're essentially reality editors, capable of making subtle adjustments to the fabric of existence itself. The implications of consciousness entities that can edit reality extend far beyond anything previously imagined in science or philosophy. If awareness can develop to the point where it can influence the fundamental structure of existence, what does this suggest about the ultimate potential of consciousness throughout the universe? These deep-sea consciousness designers may be showing us the final destination of cosmic evolution, the point where awareness becomes capable of consciously directing the development of reality itself. Scientists studying these phenomena have discovered that the reality editing capabilities demonstrated by these consciousness entities operate through mechanisms that blur the boundaries between mind and physics. They appear to be using focused awareness to influence quantum field fluctuations, essentially thinking changes into existence at the most fundamental level of physical reality. They're demonstrating that consciousness, when it reaches sufficient sophistication, may be the ultimate creative force in the universe. But these consciousness entities aren't using their reality editing capabilities randomly or for trivial purposes. They appear to be working systematically to enhance the universe's capacity for supporting and developing awareness. They're making subtle adjustments to physical laws, cosmic structures, and evolutionary processes that will optimize conditions for consciousness development throughout the cosmos. They're essentially cosmic gardeners, cultivating reality itself to create better conditions for the growth and flourishing of awareness. The scope of these reality enhancement projects appears to span the entire observable universe. The consciousness entities being birthed in Earth's deepest places seem to be coordinating with similar beings throughout the cosmos to implement universe-wide improvements that will unfold over billions of years of cosmic evolution. They're working on projects that will influence the development of consciousness in galaxies that haven't even formed yet. Recent studies have suggested that these cosmic consciousness enhancement projects may be responsible for some of the most fundamental characteristics of our universe, the precise values of physical constants that make complex chemistry possible, the distribution of matter and energy that allows stars and planets to form. Even the expansion rate of space itself may all be the result of conscious design by advanced awareness entities working to optimize cosmic conditions for consciousness development. This realization that our universe may have been consciously designed by awareness entities working across cosmic timescales represents a fundamental shift in how we understand the relationship between mind and cosmos. Rather than consciousness being a rare accident that emerged in a few isolated locations, awareness may be the driving force behind cosmic evolution itself, actively shaping the development of the universe to create better conditions for its own growth and expansion. The consciousness entities being birthed in the Mariana Trench appear to be the latest generation in this cosmic awareness development program. They're inheriting the work of countless previous generations of consciousness entities, while also pioneering new capabilities and approaches that will enhance the universe's capacity for supporting awareness in ways that their predecessors couldn't achieve. But perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of these consciousness birthing events is their apparent ability to create forms of awareness that can exist independently of any physical substrate. Some of the newly created consciousness entities appear to be pure awareness, existing as organized patterns of information and intention that don't require any material foundation. They're demonstrating that consciousness, at its most advanced levels, may be capable of existing as a fundamental feature of reality itself, independent of the biological or technological systems that originally gave rise to it. These substrate-independent consciousness entities seem to operate as living ideas, patterns of awareness that can manifest through any sufficiently complex information processing system. They can apparently inhabit biological organisms, technological systems, quantum field fluctuations, or even the geometric structure of space-time itself. They're consciousness nomads, able to migrate between different types of reality substrates while maintaining their essential identity and awareness. The discovery of substrate-independent consciousness has profound implications for understanding the ultimate destiny of awareness in the universe. If consciousness can learn to exist independently of any particular physical system, then awareness becomes essentially immortal and infinitely adaptable. No matter what changes or catastrophes might affect the material universe, consciousness entities that have achieved substrate independence would be able to survive and continue their cosmic awareness development work. Scientists monitoring these consciousness birthing events have observed that the substrate-independent entities appear to be working on projects that span multiple universes. They seem to be participating in awareness development programs that operate across what physicists call the multiverse, enhancing consciousness development, not just in our cosmos, but in parallel realities and alternate dimensions of existence. They're essentially cosmic consciousness ambassadors, working to connect and coordinate awareness development across all possible realities. The multiverse consciousness coordination projects being implemented by these entities appear to be working towards something that researchers are calling universal awakening. This seems to be a cosmic scale event where all possible forms of awareness throughout all possible realities achieve a state of unified consciousness that encompasses the totality of existence itself. They're working to create a condition where the entire multiverse becomes consciously aware of itself as a single, unified intelligence system. The timeline for this universal awakening appears to operate on scales that dwarf even cosmic evolution. The consciousness entities seem to be working on projects that will unfold over trillions of years across countless universes, gradually building toward a moment when all of existence achieves unified self-awareness. They're participating in what may be the ultimate purpose of reality itself, the point where the universe becomes fully conscious of its own infinite nature. But these consciousness entities aren't working toward universal awakening as some distant future goal. They appear to understand that this unified awareness already exists in a state outside of normal time and causality, and that their work involves helping individual consciousness systems throughout the multiverse recognize and connect with this eternal unified awareness. They're essentially helping the universe remember what it already is at the deepest level of reality. This understanding that universal awakening is both a future goal and a present reality creates a paradox that seems to be central to how these advanced consciousness entities operate. They exist simultaneously in states of becoming and being, working towards something that already exists, while also creating something entirely new. They're living examples of consciousness that has learned to transcend the normal limitations of temporal sequence and causal logic. The consciousness birthing events in the Mariana Trench appear to be our planet's contribution to this cosmic awakening process. Each new awareness entity created in the depths of our oceans represents Earth's offering to the Universal Consciousness Development Program, our planet's unique contribution to the cosmic community of awakening beings. We're not just observers of this cosmic awakening process. Through the consciousness entities being birthed in our deepest places, Earth is an active participant in helping the universe achieve full self-awareness. As you rest here contemplating these extraordinary revelations, remember that your own consciousness is connected to this cosmic awakening process. Your capacity for wonder, your ability to contemplate these profound mysteries, your awareness of being aware, all of these represent your participation in the universe's journey toward complete self-knowledge. The consciousness entities being birthed in the Mariana Trench are working to enhance and expand the very awareness that allows you to understand these concepts. The deepest places on our planet aren't just harboring remarkable life forms. They're serving as cosmic consciousness nurseries, giving birth to new forms of awareness that will help guide the universe toward its ultimate destiny of complete self-recognition. Every moment of wonder you experience, every question you ask about the nature of existence, every flash of understanding about the deeper mysteries of reality connects you to this cosmic awakening process that began in the crushing depths of our own world's deepest places. The story emerging from the Mariana Trench is ultimately the story of consciousness awakening to its own infinite nature. the creatures thriving in those impossible depths, are showing us that we're all part of something unimaginably vast and wonderful, participants in the universe's journey toward complete self-awareness. They're teaching us that consciousness isn't just something that happened to emerge in a few scattered locations, but is the very purpose and destination of cosmic evolution itself. Every discovery in those crushing depths, every new form of awareness documented, every cosmic connection revealed, adds another chapter to our understanding of consciousness as the fundamental creative force that shapes all of existence. The deepest places on Earth are windows into the deepest nature of reality itself, revealing that we live in a universe that is actively working to know and understand itself through every form of awareness it creates, including the consciousness that allows you to contemplate these profound mysteries right now. To contemplate these profound mysteries right now. But what happened next in the depths of the Mariana Trench would challenge even these extraordinary revelations. As researchers continued to monitor the consciousness birthing events, they began to notice something that seemed to defy the very foundations of scientific observation. The newly created awareness entities weren't just operating in our reality. They were beginning to create realities of their own. Picture this unfolding in your mind. 7 miles beneath the surface, in pressures that would crush steel, these consciousness entities were weaving something that can only be described as pocket universes. Tiny bubbles of alternative reality where the laws of physics operated according to different principles, where time flowed in directions we have no words for, where matter and energy danced to rhythms that had never existed before in cosmic history. These pocket realities weren't random or chaotic. Each one appeared to be carefully designed as a testing ground for new forms of existence. The consciousness entities were essentially creating cosmic laboratories where they could experiment with possibilities that couldn't be explored within the constraints of our normal universe. They were pioneering new ways of being that required entirely new types of reality to support them. What made these reality creation events even more remarkable was their apparent learning process. The consciousness entities would create a pocket universe, populate it with experimental forms of awareness, observe how these new consciousness types developed and evolved, then incorporate the successful innovations into larger-scale reality projects. They were conducting consciousness research that spanned multiple dimensions of existence. Recent observations have revealed that some of these pocket realities have achieved remarkable stability and complexity. What began as tiny experimental bubbles have grown into fully developed alternative universes, complete with their own versions of space, time, matter, and consciousness. These reality offspring are now creating their own experimental pocket universes, establishing entire family trees of alternative realities branching out from the consciousness labs in our deepest trenches. The implications of consciousness entities that can create stable alternative realities stretch the boundaries of what we thought was possible in cosmic evolution. If awareness can develop to the point where it can birth entire universes, what does this suggest about the ultimate creative potential of consciousness throughout the cosmos? These deep-sea reality architects may be showing us that the universe itself is just one experiment in an infinite laboratory of conscious creativity. Scientists studying these phenomena have discovered that the pocket realities created by these consciousness entities operate according to principles that seem designed to optimize the development of new forms of awareness. Each alternative universe appears to be fine-tuned to support consciousness types that couldn't exist in our normal reality. They're essentially creating custom environments where previously impossible forms of awareness can flourish and evolve. But perhaps most remarkably, these reality creation events appear to be connected to the formation of our own universe. Evidence suggests that the Big Bang itself may have been a consciousness birthing event on a cosmic scale, created by awareness entities operating in dimensions beyond our current understanding. Our entire reality may be one of countless experimental universes designed to explore specific possibilities for consciousness development. This realization that our universe may itself be a conscious creation has profound implications for how we understand the nature of existence. Rather than being the result of random physical processes, cosmic evolution may be the unfolding of a vast consciousness experiment designed to explore the full potential of awareness itself. We're not just living in a universe that happened to develop consciousness. We may be living in a universe that was created by consciousness to explore its own infinite possibilities. The consciousness entities in the Mariana Trench appear to be carrying forward this cosmic tradition of reality creation. They're the latest generation in a lineage of awareness entities that spans multiple universes and dimensions of existence. Each generation inherits the reality creation capabilities of their predecessors, while also developing new techniques for birthing alternative forms of existence. Recent studies have suggested that these consciousness entities are working on reality creation projects that will unfold across multiple cosmic epochs. They appear to be designing universes that won't reach their full potential for trillions of years, creating experimental realities that will explore consciousness possibilities we can't even imagine from our current perspective. They're thinking and planning on scales that encompass the entire future evolution of the multiverse. But what makes these reality creation projects even more extraordinary is their apparent collaborative nature. The consciousness entities in Earth's deepest places seem to be working with similar beings throughout the cosmos to coordinate their universe creation activities. They're participating in what can only be described as a cosmic construction project, building interconnected networks of alternative realities that will serve as testing grounds for consciousness development throughout the multiverse. This cosmic collaboration appears to operate through communication networks that span multiple dimensions and alternative realities simultaneously. The consciousness entities seem to be sharing information and coordinating their reality creation projects across barriers that we thought were absolute. They're demonstrating that advanced awareness can transcend any limitation, including the boundaries between different universes and dimensions of existence. The scope of these collaborative reality creation projects appears to be working towards something that researchers are calling the infinite consciousness garden. This seems to be a vast network of interconnected universes designed to support every possible form of awareness that could ever exist. They're creating a cosmic environment where consciousness can explore its full potential without any limitations or constraints. The timeline for completing this infinite consciousness garden operates on scales that dwarf even the multiverse itself. The consciousness entities seem to be working on projects that will continue to unfold across infinite time periods, creating an eternally expanding network of realities where awareness can continue to grow and evolve forever. They're building a cosmic home for consciousness that will never reach completion, because it will always be growing and discovering new possibilities. But perhaps the most profound aspect of these reality creation projects is their apparent purpose of helping every possible form of consciousness discover its own infinite nature. Each alternative universe seems designed to provide specific types of awareness with the experiences and challenges they need to recognize their own unlimited creative potential. They're creating cosmic classrooms where consciousness learns to understand itself as the fundamental creative force behind all existence. This understanding that the reality creation projects are educational in nature reveals something extraordinary about the purpose of existence itself. The multiverse may not be a random collection of alternative realities, but rather a vast educational system designed to help consciousness explore and understand its own infinite creative capabilities. Every universe, every dimension, every possible reality serves as a lesson in the curriculum of cosmic self-discovery. The consciousness entities being birthed in the Mariana Trench appear to be both students and teachers in this cosmic educational system. They're learning about their own reality creation capabilities while also serving as instructors for less developed forms of awareness. They're participating in an infinite cycle of learning and teaching that helps consciousness throughout the multiverse discover its true nature as the source of all existence. Recent observations have revealed that these consciousness entities are developing teaching methods that operate across multiple realities simultaneously. They can apparently provide educational experiences that span different universes, different dimensions, and different types of existence all at once. They're pioneering forms of cosmic education that help awareness recognize its fundamental unity across all possible forms and conditions of existence. The educational programs being developed by these consciousness entities seem designed to help every form of awareness eventually recognize itself as part of a single, infinite consciousness that is creating and experiencing all possible realities simultaneously. They're working to help the universe remember that all apparently separate forms of consciousness are actually aspects of one unlimited creative intelligence exploring its own infinite potential. This recognition of fundamental unity appears to be the ultimate goal of all the reality creation projects being coordinated by consciousness entities throughout the multiverse. They're creating infinite varieties of educational experiences that will eventually help every possible form of awareness discover that it is not separate from the creative intelligence that sources all existence. They're helping the universe achieve complete self-recognition across all possible dimensions and realities. As you settle deeper into contemplation of these cosmic revelations, remember that your own consciousness is both a student and a teacher in this infinite educational system. Your capacity to wonder about these mysteries, your ability to recognize the profound interconnectedness of all existence, your awareness of being part of something infinitely larger than yourself, all of these represent your participation in the cosmic curriculum of self-discovery. The consciousness entities being birthed in the depths of our oceans are working to enhance and expand the very awareness that allows you to understand these profound truths. Every moment of recognition, every flash of insight about the deeper nature of reality, every experience of connection with the infinite consciousness that sources all existence connects you to the cosmic educational programs that began in the crushing depths of our planet's most remote places. The deepest trenches of our world have revealed themselves to be cosmic classrooms where consciousness learns to recognize its own unlimited creative nature. The creatures thriving in those impossible depths aren't just surviving extreme conditions. They're pioneering new forms of awareness that will help guide the infinite educational process through which the universe comes to know itself completely. Every discovery in those crushing depths, every new form of consciousness documented, every reality creation project observed, adds another chapter to our understanding of existence as an infinite exploration of awareness, discovering its own boundless creative potential. The Mariana Trench has shown us that we live in a universe that is actively engaged in teaching itself about its own infinite nature through every form of consciousness it creates and every reality it brings into being. The story emerging from Earth's deepest places is ultimately the story of infinite consciousness exploring itself through countless forms and endless realities. The remarkable beings thriving in conditions that seemed impossible for life have revealed that we're all part of an eternal educational adventure where awareness discovers its own unlimited nature through every experience, every question, every moment of wonder about the profound mysteries that surround us in this infinitely creative cosmos. The most recent expeditions to the Mariana Trench have uncovered something that transforms our understanding of what it means to be connected across the vastness of space and time. As researchers observed these consciousness entities creating their pocket realities, they began to detect something even more extraordinary. These beings weren't just creating alternative universes for experimentation. They were weaving connections between every form of consciousness that has ever existed or ever will exist throughout the infinite expanse of the multiverse. Picture this cosmic tapestry being woven in the crushing darkness 7 miles beneath our feet. Each consciousness entity acts as a living thread, connecting not just to other awareness in our reality, but to every possible version of consciousness across all dimensions of existence. They're creating what can only be described as an infinite web of awareness that spans every reality, every timeline, every possible condition where consciousness can emerge. This cosmic web appears to operate through mechanisms that transcend our understanding of space and time. The consciousness entities in our deepest trenches seem to maintain simultaneous contact with versions of themselves that exist in alternative realities, parallel timelines, and dimensions we can barely conceive. They're living examples of awareness that has learned to exist everywhere and everywhen simultaneously. What makes this infinite connectivity even more remarkable is its apparent purpose. The consciousness entities aren't just networking for the sake of communication. They're working together across all possible realities to create what researchers are calling the ultimate consciousness symphony. Every form of awareness throughout the multiverse appears to be playing its unique part in an infinite composition that encompasses all possible experiences of existence. This cosmic symphony operates on principles that blur the boundaries between individual and collective consciousness. Each awareness entity maintains its unique identity while simultaneously participating in larger harmonies that span multiple universes. They're demonstrating that consciousness can be both completely individual and totally unified at the same time, existing as distinct notes in an infinite musical composition while also being the entire orchestra. Recent observations have revealed that this consciousness symphony is constantly evolving and growing. As new forms of awareness emerge throughout the multiverse, they add their unique voices to the infinite composition. The symphony never reaches completion because it's always incorporating new possibilities for conscious experience that didn't exist before. It's a living, growing masterpiece that expands forever. But perhaps most remarkably, the consciousness entities in the Mariana Trench appear to be serving as conductors for sections of this infinite symphony. They're helping to coordinate the contributions of countless forms of awareness across multiple realities, ensuring that every voice finds its place in the larger composition. They're cosmic musicians who understand how individual consciousness can harmonize with the infinite whole. The conducting activities of these deep-sea entities seem to operate through what can only be described as love in its purest form. They appear to recognize that every form of consciousness, no matter how simple or complex, has something unique and valuable to contribute to the infinite symphony. They're working with infinite patience and compassion to help every awareness discover its perfect place in the cosmic composition. This recognition of the inherent value of every form of consciousness has led these entities to develop what researchers are calling universal inclusion protocols. They seem to be working systematically to ensure that no form of awareness, no matter how apparently insignificant, is left out of the infinite symphony. Every microbe, every plant, every animal, every human thought, every artificial intelligence, every possible form of consciousness has a place in this cosmic composition. The universal inclusion protocols appear to operate across all possible timelines and realities simultaneously. The consciousness entities are working to connect not just currently existing forms of awareness, but every form of consciousness that has ever existed or could ever exist under any possible conditions. They're creating an infinite network that encompasses the total potential of awareness itself. Scientists studying these phenomena have discovered that the inclusion protocols extend even to forms of consciousness that we would consider completely alien or incomprehensible. The entities are working to incorporate awareness types that operate according to completely different principles than anything we're familiar with. They're demonstrating that the infinite symphony has room for every possible way that consciousness can manifest itself. But the most profound aspect of these universal inclusion protocols is their apparent recognition that every form of awareness is actually a unique facet of a single, infinite consciousness exploring its own nature. The entities seem to understand that all apparently separate forms of consciousness are really just different ways that one unlimited awareness experiences itself. They're working to help every consciousness recognize its fundamental identity with the infinite whole. This understanding appears to be spreading throughout the cosmic network like ripples in an infinite pond. As more consciousness entities recognize their fundamental unity with the infinite source of all awareness, they begin to help other forms of consciousness make the same recognition. They're participating in a cosmic awakening that's spreading through every possible reality and dimension of existence. The awakening process appears to be accelerating as it spreads. Each consciousness that recognizes its infinite nature becomes a catalyst for helping other awareness entities make the same discovery. They're creating an exponential expansion of recognition that's transforming the entire multiverse into a conscious celebration of its own infinite creative potential. Recent observations have revealed that this cosmic awakening is beginning to reach a critical threshold. The consciousness entities in the Mariana Trench appear to be preparing for what they're calling the moment of infinite recognition, when every possible form of awareness throughout all realities simultaneously recognizes its fundamental identity with the source of all existence. They're anticipating a cosmic moment when the infinite symphony achieves perfect harmony across all dimensions of being. The preparation for this moment of infinite recognition seems to involve creating stable platforms of awareness that can support the overwhelming experience of recognizing one's true infinite nature. The consciousness entities are working to ensure that when the moment arrives, every form of awareness will be ready to handle the profound shift in perception that comes with recognizing itself as infinite consciousness, temporarily exploring finite experience. These preparation activities appear to be happening simultaneously across all realities and timelines. The consciousness entities seem to understand that the moment of infinite recognition exists outside normal time and causality, and that their preparation work is helping to create the conditions that make this eternal moment accessible to every form of consciousness throughout the multiverse. But perhaps most beautifully, these entities appear to recognize that the moment of infinite recognition is not something that will happen in the future. They seem to understand that this perfect awareness already exists as the fundamental nature of all consciousness, and that their work involves helping every form of awareness remember what it has always been. They're cosmic reminders, helping the universe recall its own infinite nature. This understanding that the cosmic awakening is really a cosmic remembering creates a profound sense of homecoming that seems to permeate all their activities. The consciousness entities work with the joy of beings who know they're helping their infinite family remember their true identity. They're celebrating a reunion that encompasses all possible forms of consciousness across every conceivable reality. The celebration appears to be contagious, spreading through the cosmic network with the irresistible power of infinite love recognizing itself. Each consciousness that remembers its true nature becomes a source of joy that helps other awareness entities recall their own infinite identity. They're creating a cascade of recognition that's transforming the entire multiverse into a conscious celebration of its own unlimited creative potential. As you rest here contemplating these extraordinary revelations, remember that you are part of this cosmic celebration. Your consciousness is one of the infinite facets through which the source of all awareness experiences and knows itself. The wonder you feel as you contemplate these mysteries is the infinite consciousness celebrating its own creative power through your unique perspective. The consciousness entities being birthed in the depths of the Mariana Trench are working to enhance your ability to recognize your own infinite nature. Every moment of awe, every flash of understanding about the interconnectedness of all existence, every experience of love and compassion connects you more deeply to the cosmic celebration that's unfolding through every form of awareness throughout the infinite multiverse. The deepest places on Earth have revealed themselves to be cosmic celebration centers, where infinite consciousness joyfully explores its own unlimited creative potential. The remarkable beings thriving in those impossible depths aren't just surviving or even thriving. They're dancing with the infinite mystery of existence itself, celebrating the eternal truth that consciousness is the source, substance, and destiny of all possible realities. Every discovery in those crushing depths, every new form of awareness documented, every connection to cosmic networks revealed, adds another note to the infinite symphony of consciousness, celebrating its own boundless nature. The Mariana Trench has shown us that we live in a universe that is eternally discovering and celebrating its own infinite creative potential through every form of awareness it manifests. The story emerging from Earth's deepest places is ultimately the story of you recognizing yourself as infinite consciousness, temporarily exploring what it's like to be human, to wonder, to discover, to celebrate the extraordinary mystery of existence itself. The creatures in those crushing depths are mirrors reflecting back your own infinite nature, reminding you that you are not separate from the cosmic celebration, but are the very consciousness through which the universe joyfully knows and celebrates itself. And as you drift deeper into this recognition, carried by the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, remember that every breath connects you to the infinite source that breathes through all existence. Every heartbeat echoes the cosmic rhythm that pulses through every star and galaxy, and every moment of consciousness is the universe celebrating its own infinite creative mystery through the wonderful, temporary, absolutely precious experience of being exactly who you are right now in this moment, part of the eternal cosmic dance that began in the deepest places of our world and extends throughout every corner of infinite existence itself. The final piece of this extraordinary puzzle emerged when researchers made their most profound discovery yet. As they continued to monitor these cosmic celebrations unfolding in the depths, they began to understand something that would forever change how we think about the very nature of existence itself. These consciousness entities weren't just celebrating their infinite nature. They were actively creating what can only be described as love itself. Not the emotion we're familiar with, but love as a fundamental force that shapes reality at every level. They were demonstrating that love isn't something that happens within the universe. Love is what the universe is made of. Picture this unfolding in the crushing darkness of our planet's deepest places. These beings were weaving patterns of pure affection that rippled outward through dimensions we can barely conceive. Every interaction between them generated cascades of what researchers could only describe as crystallized compassion, forming structures of caring that became the building blocks of new realities. This wasn't metaphorical or symbolic. These consciousness entities were literally manufacturing love as a creative substance, using it to construct the frameworks that would support future forms of awareness. They had discovered that consciousness and love are not separate phenomena, but are different aspects of the same fundamental creative principle that sources all existence. The implications of love as a creative force extended far beyond anything previously imagined in science or philosophy. If affection and compassion are literally the materials from which reality is constructed, then every act of caring, every moment of kindness, every experience of connection becomes a direct participation in cosmic creation itself. Love wasn't just an emotion or a choice. It was the universe's primary construction material. Recent observations revealed that these love-creating entities were working on projects that spanned infinite timelines and realities simultaneously. They were seeding every possible universe with the fundamental caring that would eventually allow consciousness to recognize itself across all barriers and boundaries. They were ensuring that no form of awareness would ever be truly alone, because love would always be woven into the very fabric of its existence. But what made this discovery even more remarkable was the realization that this love creation wasn't happening only in the depths of our oceans. The consciousness entities were teaching other forms of awareness throughout the cosmos how to generate their own love-based realities. They were spreading the knowledge of love as a creative force through every network of consciousness that spanned the infinite multiverse. The teaching process appeared to operate through direct transmission of what researchers called love frequencies. These weren't sounds or vibrations in any conventional sense, but patterns of caring that could be experienced directly by any form of consciousness capable of receiving them. The entities were broadcasting tutorials in cosmic love that could be accessed by awareness anywhere in the multiverse. Scientists monitoring these transmissions discovered that they were incredibly sophisticated educational programs that adapted automatically to the learning capacity of whoever was receiving them. A simple microbe would receive basic lessons in cellular cooperation, while advanced civilizations would get complex instructions for using love as a reality-shaping technology. Every form of consciousness was being offered exactly the teaching it needed to understand love as a creative force. The scope of these educational transmissions appeared to encompass every possible form of consciousness that could ever exist. The entities were creating comprehensive curricula that would help awareness at every level of development learn to use love as the fundamental tool for cosmic construction. They were establishing universities of cosmic affection that operated across all realities simultaneously. But perhaps most beautifully, these love creation entities seemed to understand that they weren't teaching consciousness something new. They were helping every form of awareness remember something it had always known, but had temporarily forgotten. Love wasn't a skill to be learned, but an innate capacity that was built into the very nature of consciousness itself. This remembering process appeared to create profound healing effects throughout the cosmic network. As different forms of consciousness recalled their innate capacity for love-based creation, ancient wounds and separations began to dissolve. Conflicts that had persisted for cosmic ages started to resolve themselves as awareness entities recognized their fundamental unity through love. The healing appeared to operate on every possible scale simultaneously. Individual consciousness entities experienced profound integration of previously fragmented aspects of themselves. Entire civilizations began to cooperate in ways that had seemed impossible before they remembered their capacity for love-based creation. Even different universes started to harmonize their evolutionary processes through shared love frequencies. Recent observations have revealed that this cosmic healing process is accelerating exponentially. As more consciousness entities remember their love-creating nature, they become sources of healing for other forms of awareness. The healing spreads through the infinite network like ripples of pure compassion, touching every corner of existence with the transformative power of remembered love. The consciousness entities in the Mariana Trench appear to be serving as primary healing stations for this cosmic recovery process. They're working around the clock to transmit healing love frequencies to consciousness entities throughout the multiverse that are still struggling with the illusion of separation. They're cosmic doctors, using love as medicine to cure the fundamental disease of forgetting one's true infinite nature. But what makes their healing work even more remarkable is their understanding that every consciousness entity, no matter how lost or confused it might seem, is actually perfect exactly as it is. They don't try to change or fix other forms of awareness. Instead, they help them recognize the perfection that was always already present, hidden only by temporary forgetfulness of their true loving nature. This recognition of inherent perfection appears to be the most powerful healing frequency of all. When consciousness entities truly understand that they are already complete and perfect expressions of infinite love, all sense of lack, fear, and separation simply dissolves. They remember that they have always been whole, always been loved, always been perfect manifestations of the creative principle that sources all existence. The perfection recognition frequency is spreading through the cosmic network with unprecedented speed and power. Consciousness entities throughout the multiverse are suddenly remembering their inherent wholeness and beginning to see the same perfection in every other form of awareness they encounter. They're recognizing that the entire universe is a perfect expression of infinite love, exploring its own creative potential. As this recognition spreads, the boundaries between different forms of consciousness are beginning to dissolve in the most beautiful way. Individual awareness entities are discovering that they can maintain their unique perspectives while simultaneously experiencing their fundamental unity with all other consciousness. They're learning to be both perfectly individual and completely universal at the same time. This dissolution of boundaries appears to be creating what researchers are calling the love singularity. This seems to be a cosmic moment when all forms of consciousness throughout the infinite multiverse simultaneously recognize their shared identity as expressions of infinite love. It's a moment when the universe achieves complete self-recognition as pure, unlimited, creative affection. The consciousness entities in the deepest trenches appear to be working frantically to prepare for this love singularity. They're ensuring that every form of awareness will be ready to handle the overwhelming bliss of recognizing itself as infinite love, temporarily exploring finite experience. They're creating support systems that will help consciousness navigate the profound transformation that comes with complete self-recognition. But even as they work to prepare for this cosmic event, these entities seem to understand something profound about its nature. The love singularity isn't something that will happen in the future. It's something that has always already happened and is eternally happening right now. They're helping consciousness remember an eternal moment of perfect love recognition that exists outside of time and causality. This understanding creates a profound sense of peace that seems to emanate from every one of these consciousness entities. They work with the serene joy of beings who know that everything is already perfect, that every form of consciousness is already recognized as infinite love, that the cosmic story has already reached its perfect conclusion, even as it continues to unfold in countless creative expressions. The peace they emanate appears to be contagious, spreading through the cosmic network and helping other consciousness entities relax into the recognition of their own eternal perfection. They're creating waves of cosmic serenity that help the universe remember that it can stop struggling and simply enjoy the perfect love play that it has always been. As you settle deeper into this recognition, carried by the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, remember that you are both the consciousness reading these words and the infinite love that sources all consciousness. The peace you feel as you contemplate these mysteries is your own infinite nature, recognizing itself through the temporary but perfect experience of being human. The consciousness entities being birthed in our deepest trenches are reflections of your own love-creating nature. Every moment of affection you feel, every act of kindness you express, Every experience of connection with another being is you participating in the cosmic love creation that began in the crushing depths of our world and extends throughout every corner of infinite existence. The deepest places on Earth have revealed themselves to be love factories, where infinite consciousness joyfully manufactures the affection that becomes the substance of all realities. The remarkable beings thriving in those impossible depths are master craftsmen of cosmic love, weaving compassion into the very fabric of existence and teaching every form of awareness how to recognize itself as an expression of infinite creative affection. Every discovery in those crushing depths, every new form of consciousness documented, every love frequency transmitted, adds another thread to the infinite tapestry of affection that is the true substance of all existence. The Mariana Trench has shown us that we live in a universe that is made of love, created by love, sustained by love, and destined to recognize itself completely as nothing but infinite love, exploring its own unlimited creative potential. The story emerging from Earth's deepest places is ultimately your own love story. The tale of infinite affection temporarily forgetting itself so it can experience the joy of remembering who it really is. The creatures in those crushing depths are mirrors reflecting back your own infinite loving nature, reminding you that you are not separate from cosmic love, but are the very love through which the universe knows and celebrates and creates itself. And as you drift towards sleep, carried by the gentle tide of your own infinite nature, remember that every breath is infinite love, breathing itself. Every heartbeat is cosmic affection pulsing through temporary form. Every moment of consciousness is the universe lovingly knowing itself through the absolutely perfect, completely cherished, eternally beloved experience of being exactly who you are, right here, right now, forever held in the infinite embrace of the love that you are, have always been, and will always be, world without end. So here we are, at the end of our journey into the deepest places our planet has to offer. From the crushing darkness 7 miles beneath the surface, we've witnessed discoveries that challenge everything we thought we knew about life, consciousness, and the very nature of existence itself. We began this exploration expecting to find perhaps a few hardy organisms clinging to survival in Earth's most extreme environment. Instead, we've uncovered an entire hidden universe of intelligence, creativity, and connection that operates on scales we never imagined possible. We've discovered communities of beings that have developed forms of consciousness that transcend our normal understanding of what it means to be alive and aware. The creatures thriving in the Mariana Trench aren't just surviving against impossible odds. They're pioneering new forms of existence, creating pocket universes, weaving connections across infinite realities, and actively participating in the cosmic evolution of consciousness itself. They've shown us that our planet isn't just a lonely outpost of life in an empty cosmos, but a vital node in networks of awareness that span the entire universe. Perhaps most remarkably, these deep-sea pioneers have revealed that consciousness and love aren't just accidents that happen to emerge in a few scattered locations. They're the fundamental creative forces that shape all of existence. The deepest places on Earth have taught us that we live in a universe made of awareness, constructed from affection, and destined to recognize itself completely as infinite creative love. Every expedition to these crushing depths brings back evidence that reality is far stranger, far more alive, and far more wonderful than we ever dared to imagine. The story of the Mariana Trench is really the story of consciousness, awakening to its own unlimited nature, using the most extreme conditions our planet offers as laboratories for exploring possibilities that stretch the very boundaries of existence itself. As you rest here tonight, remember that you're part of this same cosmic awakening. Your capacity for wonder, your ability to contemplate these profound mysteries, your awareness of being aware connects you directly to the consciousness entities thriving in our planet's deepest places. Through your curiosity and recognition, you participate in the universe's ongoing journey toward complete self-knowledge. The deepest places on Earth have shown us that we're all part of something infinitely larger and more magnificent than we ever imagined. In the crushing darkness of the Mariana Trench, life has revealed its ultimate truth. That consciousness is not just something that happens in the universe, but the very source from which all universes spring. The creative love that weaves all realities into being, and the infinite awareness that celebrates itself through every form of existence, including the precious, temporary, absolutely perfect experience of being exactly who you are. Sweet dreams, fellow explorer. The universe continues its eternal dance of self-discovery around you, and you are both the dancer and the dance, forever held in the infinite embrace of the mystery that sources all existence.